All right, let's talk about something we see every day. We live in a world that's just begging us to share everything, right? From what you have for breakfast to your deepest thoughts to every single vacation photo. But have you ever stopped and wondered about the people who just don't? The ones who keep their lives mostly to themselves? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind privacy. We're going to find out why, for a lot of people, choosing not to overshare is actually a sign of some serious internal strength.
And that raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? I mean, when the default setting for pretty much our entire culture is public, does choosing privacy make you some kind of rebel? Or is there something deeper going on? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. We're going to look past the simple idea of preference and get to the core psychological shift that actually leads someone to value a private life.
Okay, so to really get why some people choose privacy, we first have to understand the world they're pushing back against. And let's be real, you could call this the age of oversharing. The lines between our public and private lives, they've never been blurrier. Think about it like this. Social media has basically given every single one of us a stage. And when you're on stage, there's this unspoken pressure to perform, to show off the most exciting, the most successful, the happiest version of yourself. And all those likes, comments, and shares, that's the applause. It's this real-time feedback loop telling you how well your performance is going. But that constant need for an audience, man, it can be absolutely exhausting. And it's right there, in that exhaustion, that the desire for a little privacy starts to take root. So how do you actually step off that stage? Well, the journey toward valuing privacy usually doesn't start with something obvious, like deleting an app. It actually begins with this really big internal shift. And it's not about being antisocial or, secretive. It's all about finding a completely different way to feel good about yourself. And the foundation for that shift? It's something called emotional maturity. This is the point where you become the main person in charge of your own feelings. You start to understand why you feel a certain way, and you don't immediately need someone else to tell you it's okay or to try and fix it for you. This right here, this is the critical first step away from needing the outside world to keep you stable.
And growing that emotional maturity leads to the real game changer, something called intrinsic self-worth. Now, this is the keys to everything we're talking about. It's that deep down feeling of value that comes from the inside. It means you know you're worthy, not because you got a raise or because your photo went viral, but just because you're you. And once your self-worth comes from the inside, all that applause from the social media stage, it just starts to lose its grip on you.
So once you've built up that solid inner foundation, you just naturally start to build a different kind of life. You start creating what you could call an architecture of privacy. It's a life where the most important things are valued because of the experience itself, not because of how shareable they are. And this really breaks it down perfectly. It's like looking at two totally different operating systems for a human being. On one side, you've got external validation. That's a life fueled by likes and comments. It feels like a constant, kind of frantic performance. But on the other side, you've got internal validation. That's fueled by your own personal values, by self-respect. And it feels like quiet authenticity. It's really the difference between always asking, what will people think, versus asking, is this actually me?
And making this shift unlocks some pretty amazing benefits. Honestly, they almost feel like superpowers in the world we live in today. You get this immunity to social pressure because you're not trying to please the crowd anymore. Your relationships get way deeper and more authentic since they're built on real connection, not a performance. You discover that you can be totally content without an audience. And maybe the biggest one of all, you get the freedom to just be yourself, even when you're completely offline. So what this all comes down to is that we really need to reframe how we think about privacy. It's not about hiding something. It's not about being ashamed. It's actually a totally different, much more grounded kind of confidence. You could call it the power of quiet. And this quote it absolutely nails the whole idea. When you're truly secure in who you are, that need for everyone else's approval, it just melts away. You don't need the world to give you a round of applause because you're perfectly happy with your own quiet approval. Your life becomes yours, first and foremost. So I want to leave you with one last thing to think about. In a culture that's obsessed with the stories we tell the world, what if the greatest strength is actually found in cherishing the stories we don't tell? Those experiences that are so meaningful, so important to us, that they don't need to be posted to feel real. What if those are the most valuable stories we have? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.